This week's Coach of the Week and the season finale Coach of the Week goes to Meredith Walmsley of the 3rd through 5th grade Panthers. The Panthers secured the championship this last game, and Meredith has been an absolute joy watching as she has ran up and down the sidelines almost every game, giving instruction and encouragement to her kids. She is a godly woman. She is a great coach. Her smile is contagious and her laugh is too. She has made this soccer season not only fun, but also all of her players got a championship from it. So, Meredith, it's because of you, your hard work, your dedication, and your love for those kids and the sport that you guys got a championship. So, great job. You are this week's last Coach of the Week and final Coach of the Season, sponsored by Exquisite Lawns. This week's Player of the Week, sponsored by Innovative Insight Solutions, goes to Mr. Riker Stroop of the Galacticos. Coach Clayton says that Riker has worked the entire season to stay in position and not just chase the ball. And finally, during the last game, he grasped the concept and he stayed in his general area. He did that, and by doing that, he made several defensive stops against the opposition. So, Riker, great job. Way to be a learner, way to be a great soccer player, way to listen to your coach. That's going to serve you well, not only in the sport, but in life in general. You are this week's Player of the Week, sponsored by Innovative Insight Solutions. Dream about how technology can automate or improve your business, and then call and tell them about it.
Welcome to episode 70, and I don't know, that's not silver, it's not gold, it's somewhere in the middle. Copper, I don't know, our copper edition.
Copper.
We are here with a couple of great guests. I'm Todd.
I'm Katrina.
And our guest today, we value education so much, and we talk a lot about it on our podcast. And so we have Eric and Rynthia with us today. They represent a pretty impactful piece of education here in our community. And so I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves and what you bring to the table, so to speak. So, Eric, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Eric Williams, and I've been doing this for about 25 years. I run the TAFA program, which is similar to a homeschool co-op, a little bit different in that sense. And again, have had the experience. We've now graduated one of our kids just last year. So we've gone through the whole process of that, as well as my wife was actually in the public school administration doing assistant principal. So we've got to talk about all the different ins and outs of things throughout through the whole marriage.
Where was she the assistant principal at?
It was in Mansfield. I think it was Danny Jones Middle School.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And what does TAFA stand for? You mentioned
Texas Academy of Faith and Arts.
Okay.
So it's generally focused on the arts area, even though we do some of the academics, but it's a way to give the homeschool students a way to get in and get some quality of the arts, things that are difficult to get if you're homeschooled.
And we do get a front row seat to that because we get to see all the kids come through the LC because you guys utilize our building, and man, just a fantastic program, and it produces some really good kids and some really good talent. So Rynthia?
I'm Rynthia Clements, and I'm the director of Excel Learning. I spent 28 years in public education, 25 of those years just down the street at Martin High School, teaching juniors and seniors English. And I've been here for 6 years, so the total there is 34 years of education. So, yeah, it's been fun.
That's a lot of experience.
Yeah. And Rynthia, explain the relationship between TAFA and Excel.
Okay. Well, like I said, I'm the liaison between Lake Church and TAFA. But the relationship that we share between Excel Learning and TAFA is Eric and the TAFA group do the arts incredibly well. My goodness. Talk about some of the schools where your kids have gone.
We've gone from Eastman Conservatory to Boston Conservatory, Curtis Institute, and then all the way, of course, to TCU and some other great schools around here.
So when TAFA joined Lake Church in 2021, I believe, so they've been with us for 5 years. We realized that there were a few little gaps And some of those were for middle school kids, some of them were for the elementary kids. Some of them were for academic courses that they just didn't they had not had space to offer those.
Mhm.
And because we could offer some flexibility in scheduling and space,
Yeah.
that's what we did. Eric says yes.
Yeah.
I love that. My three favorite words are yes, yet, and and. And when I would go to him and say, "What do you think about adding?" And we talked about a lot of different classes. Next year we'll have 31 offerings. Excel has come alongside TAFA to
Mhm.
offer 31 additional classes. This year we have 21. And Eric always says yes. And now the other part of that is yes, if you can find the space.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So that's what we do here.
That's a
Yeah.
good problem. That's
It's
a good problem.
great problem.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a great problem.
And Eric has adding more classes. I'm assuming it has benefited the TAFA families as well as drawn some more families in. Is that true?
Yeah, I think so, especially in the elementary, like she said, the elementary and middle school areas, because we've never focused very heavily on any of the academics
Mm-hmm.
in that area. And there's a lot of parents that are getting into homeschooling, especially when they first start. They're nervous, like, what does this look like? How can I do it? And knowing there's somewhere that you can go, even as a kindergarten, like, hey, is there some support? Okay, good. I can throw them into a class here as I'm getting my feet wet and figuring out
Yeah.
what to do, and so
Yeah.
they know that they're
Yeah.
supported.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good launching off point to today's topic, among other things. We live in a culture now where school choice, there's so many more options in how you can educate your child than there was even when I was a kid. I think, sitting around this table, we have charter school, we have, homeschool, we have public high school. And so all of us bring an element to experience that I think that we can speak to and help families discern, as you're thinking about your child's education, how do you know which path to go? So that's a super big question. But as families continue to think about this, because there are more and more options available now, and it's become, I think homeschooling has normalized even in the past 8 years, way more than it was. And it's also changed dramatically. Homeschooling
Right.
has changed dramatically since before COVID. So I'll throw that question out. How do you know, or how can a family decide what's best for them in regards to school choice?
I think one of the foundational things they have to think about is what's their purpose. Do they have a student who has educational needs? Do they have learning differences? Do they have a student that's musically talented? Do they have a student that's talented in the arts? And that could be dancing, that could be music, it could be art. Um, do they need flexibility in their schedule?
Mhm.
So when I get phone calls, and I get phone calls about once a week. How what's going to be the best for my kid? Those are the three questions I ask. What is your educational goal?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a challenge. It's one of those you've just got to go to the Lord and talk to that about, because public school is kind of always been the norm for as long as we can remember and everything. And so when you're stepping out of that, I tell parents, hey, pray. It's different and it's unfamiliar, and so it's
Yeah.
hard. So you want to make sure this is where the Lord's guiding you in those different directions, whether it is in the public school or the private school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or in the homeschool realm. There's so many different elements, but there is so much now support in the different groups. And like you said, homeschooling has changed so much
Mhm.
over the years. It doesn't look like what it did,
Yeah.
years back. And there's still kind of a misconception of like, well, what is homeschooling? We just sit at home 8 hours a day and read books or
Yeah.
something. It's
Yeah.
nothing like that
Yeah.
anymore. And so there's a lot of help and support
Yeah.
out there. So
Yeah.
What do the parents come to you? What do you think, with expectations, especially in the arts, that hey, if I bring my child here, what is that going to get them?
yeah, what we try to tell, especially at orientation, we always tell the parents we're a little different. We're here to support you in what you're doing.
Okay.
So the parents are going to come, and we tell them as they get in the younger ages, we can kind of give them the assignments. We're walking through what they need, whether it's in the fine arts area of different things or it's in the academics. But as they get in the older areas, parents are a little more hands off because, especially in academics, a lot of them don't know how do I teach physics.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we're like, hey, we're going to give them the material they need, but we need you still involved. We're still supporting. Check in. Did they
Yeah.
get their work done? Are they keeping up with things
Yeah.
Gotcha.
to help keep? And so it's a very hand in hand When it comes to everything from discipline to graduation, even, it's a, hey, let's call the parents. Let's see what's going on. Is there a way we can help you? Here's what we're seeing taking place. And so we're trying to work side by side with those parents to do that.
So they're not coming to you saying, I want my child to go to Boston Conservatory, make it happen.
No, they're
Okay,
not doing
okay,
that.
okay.
No.
All right. Yeah. They're really counting on you guys to be a piece of the education.
It is, and since we're Christ-centered in everything that we do, it's become one of those in the arts. It's just it's a dangerous world out there, in the secular world, and how the directions it can go. And so they see us as a way like, wow, I want my kid involved in the arts, but is there a safe area to do that?
That's awesome.
And so, and that's even outside of the school system, whether it's just going to a secular community theater, working in something, they're going, hey, we look at TAFL, we know our kids are safe there, we can plug in as well.
Yeah.
So that's a big component, I think, more so than hey, we're going to get them to Boston Conservatory.
Right.
It's more of like, hey, we get to instill in them something that's of high quality and as well Christ-centered in what they're seeing.
Yeah, Rynthia, when you have those conversations that, when parents are calling, if you ask them, what's your purpose or what's your goal, what are some common answers that you've received back, and how do you walk them through that conversation?
A very common answer is, I'm going to tag on to what you said. Parents are asked to come alongside. And sometimes with the homeschool world, they're accustomed to the public school. You take them, you drop them off at 8 o'clock. We're going to pick them up at 3:30 and give them a high five and say, what did you do today? And hope that when they sit at the kitchen table, they can get their homework done while mom or dad fixes dinner. Well, in the homeschool world, I tell them it's not like that. You really are coming alongside them. You are working with them. You are helping explain that to them. And while physics and chemistry and algebra may not be your strength, you still need to be involved with your student in learning that process. And I tell them it's not a hands-off approach. And and then I also explain public school, if you opt to do that, should not be a hands-off approach either. I read this great article a couple of years ago, and it said what schools need, because that was the big buzz. What do schools need to keep them afloat when in the world of so many choices? And the article said what schools need are better parents. And that's really true. We cannot drop our kids off, whether it's in a co-op situation, whether it's in a public school situation, and do a hands-off approach here, because that doesn't help. That doesn't help. That doesn't come alongside the teacher. That doesn't help your students. We, as parents, we really need to show them how much we value education and continue learning ourselves, and be an integral part. Even if we work full time, I always tell parents, please be a part of your kids' educational process. I know when they come in for tutoring, we're usually a once a week stop, and we invite parents into the tutoring session, and we say, come and learn how we teach your student, because then I want you to go home and I want you to do this. You're here on Tuesday. You do this on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. Make it fun on Saturday and Sunday. But please continue to do what we do in the classroom, because you can't just expect a 1-hour session. You can't just expect 1 hour in the public schools for that particular subject. You can't expect kids to learn that and to value it and to move closer to understanding it.
So would you guys say, generally speaking, that that the homeschool and the co-op route is more for either moms or dads that are stay at home, that can be more involved in the child's life, as opposed to charter or these private Christian schools or public schools, where mom and dad, or if it's a single parent, one of them, they have to work, and they're not able to be at the home during the day? What would you say?
Yeah, that's again where it comes back to making sure this is the direction you want to take. When it comes to the homeschool world, finances is a big part of it. Figuring out what that looks like. Most of our families, and we've got probably 300 to 400 families involved. I would say most of them are, for the most part, single income families, because one of them is generally staying home. And they're finding maybe little side jobs or ways they can do some little part-time, stay at home kind of things. And so they generally just have one parent working. But most of them, I would say, are really feel called to do it, not because they have lots of extra money so they can have a parent stay home. It's still a struggle for them. So, for instance, our program, our classes are vastly cheaper than a private school rate because we know they're immediately single income families.
Okay, got it.
So we're trying to find a way to be able to meet that need
Yeah.
in what we're doing there.
Gotcha. That's
So
good.
it's something they have to weigh out.
Yeah.
Is it a doable thing, and where they're at from
Right.
a financial standpoint, because you have all the extras, buying your own textbooks, buying your own curriculum. Those are all these little things that are not provided if you're in public school or private school. So they have to think through that.
Got it.
And there's ways that we come along and help
Yeah.
do that and give them the resources and people to check into, and
Yeah.
they learn to navigate that, because the more kids they have along the way, they can pass that curriculum down.
Yeah.
So they're not having to buy it every time for every single
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
They begin to figure out that workload among all, and how the setting itself, when you're teaching kids that may be an 8-year-olds up to 14, and you're teaching them at the exact same time, and you learn that skill of how to navigate between them. And it takes a little while to figure out, but once you do, it's kind of fun, because then as your older ones get older, they begin to influence the younger ones and can help take on some of the responsibilities and work with them where their strengths may be.
Yeah. That's good.
For instance, just last night, my older daughter, she just graduated from here last year, and it was great in dance and musical theater. And one of my youngest sons, who's just in 8th grade, has to come up with a dance routine that he's supposed to do for musical theater audition. Well, she was a dance, loved that area, and that was her thing. So she's working with him for hours yesterday, just at home, kind of instilling in him. So getting to see even the siblings
Yeah.
work together, that's a challenge for siblings still. And they still
Yeah.
butt heads quite often, but it's
Right.
fun just to watch that
Yeah.
and see it. But you get a little more of that in the homeschool, because they're home together, so more often they have to
Right.
deal with each other. So
If I could mention one more thing in addition to that, we have parents here at TAFA that when their kids are in classes, they will sit down and do their work, and we have workspaces so they can do that. So if a parent, say, is a realtor, or if they have a more flexible schedule, even if they have a full-time job, we see parents do that, and they just go into kind of a private space. Some of them go sit out in their car while their kids are in class.
Right.
And then when their kid comes out of class, the student is working on a project or working on homework, and then the parent continues to work on their work. So if you've got a flexible work schedule and the kind of job where you can be remote, in our classes, TAFA classes meet once a week. So it is a little bit of a struggle, but it is so worth it if that's one of the goals for your family.
So you spent so long in public schools teaching, and I'll ask this of both of you: what's the culture difference between a public school and a place like TAFA?
If you put two moms, okay, and it was a homeschool mom and a public school mom, and you said which is better, I mean that is a lively conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean the homeschool mom is saying, well, if you want your child to get stabbed in the face twice a week, send him to public school. And then the homeschool mom is saying, the public school mom is saying, well, if you want your kid to learn how to make their clothes and churn butter, send them over to homeschool. So neither one of those two perspectives are accurate.
Okay.
But the public school, I'm going to go back to the question. Are you asking me what's different in
Yeah,
the public school world?
yeah.
Okay. What's different is it is a very defined schedule. Okay. And if your student is great in the arts, if your student, I know like your daughter, if she's fantastic in ballet and dance. Well, if you're in the public schools, you're on a block schedule like we have right now. She's only going to get that class twice a week, 1 week, and then 3 times a week the next week.
Right.
She's also in that class with students who may have just begun,
Right.
and it's their first year doing that.
Yeah.
So if you see potential, and if your student is committed and they say, this is what I want to do as a career, I would say move them to a place like TAFA or move them to a home school so that you can pursue those kinds of career options.
That's good.
yeah, and I would say that it depends on the schools where you're at, and different things. Like Martin High School's phenomenal when it comes to the music programs and stuff there. And so I mean, if you've got kids involved there, but maybe you're in a school that's like, we're not interested really in the arts, and we've had to cut that or something,
Right.
and your kids are in love with that, then it's definitely a thought to think,
Right.
hey, how can I continue to get them that?
Yeah.
Culturally as well, I would say it's because it's like you said, it's very structured in the public school, and there's always variances, especially in charter school,
Mhm.
of what that looks like. But it allows you in the homeschool world to a little more customize what works for your kids better from not just the time, but also the curriculum itself
Mhm.
that you're doing. For instance, science curriculum, you may have one textbook, and some kids like, I don't know what they're talking about. In the homeschool world, they're like, well, here's 50 other versions that kind of teaching it. Figure out what method and talking with other parents
Yeah.
works with the style that your kid enjoys learning
Right.
with. And that may be more hands-on. It may be more just reading, whatever it is. And
Yeah.
so you get to kind of custom. I mean, even with our kids, we've got 3. We're not using the same curriculum in any of the different subjects that we across all 3 necessarily.
Yeah.
It may work, but we may have one kid that's like, I do not want to do math. Please don't make me do it. And we're trying to figure out, well, what does that look like? How do we
Right.
make it more interesting for him? And so we've done something a little bit different in his math and a different curriculum altogether that works
Yeah.
better for him. So you get a little more of that.
Yeah.
So that's an advantage, I would say, that you get.
Right.
So it just kind of depends.
Right.
But cultural wise, you're going to see more parent involvement just like in our school because they're simply here hanging out around. So if there is a discipline issue, I'm like, hey, where's mom at? I know
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
sitting around
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
somewhere. I'm like, hey, can you go talk to your kid
Yeah,
real
that's
quick or
true.
something? So that there's just no way to do that in
Right.
some of the other
Yeah,
schools.
sure.
Right.
One of the greatest tensions in the public school are the discipline issues. And we don't have access to mom and dad as much as we'd like to. And even sometimes when you do have access to mom and dad, I've had a parent tell me, hey, Miss Clements, when they are at school, they're your problem. When they're at home, they're my problem.
Yeah.
And
What a way to view your child.
I know, right?
that was so
Yeah.
shocking
Yeah.
to me. I had heard, that was the attitude of some. I
Mhm.
had never experienced that until year 18.
Yeah.
And when I got when I finished with that phone call, it it hurt my heart. It
Yeah.
really did
Yeah.
because they had already resigned themselves to the fact that this kid was trouble,
Yeah.
okay? And it was all they could do to manage him at home, and they were
Yeah.
not stepping onto the campus.
Wow.
And
It's-
there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in public school.
It's like what we said earlier. A lot of it comes back to how much the parent involvement
Yeah.
is going to be, whether they're in the public school or in a
Exactly.
homeschool
That's
setting
true.
or private.
Yeah.
The more the parent is plugged in, the more beneficial it ends up being for the student, the more they excel in wherever they're at.
Makes
It's
sense,
just always the case.
And I know that my wife has told you when I'm at work, I'm your problem. So.
More hers than
Yeah.
mine.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, as parents are, deciding what path is best for them, what would you say to the parent whose child has some learning difficulties?
We experience that, probably every once a month, and whether it's dyslexia, whether it's an emotional disturbance, a difficulty, if it's a processing issue, whatever it is,
Mhm.
the public school in Arlington is equipped to deal with that. Now, I
Yeah.
will tell you because, if you live in Arlington and if you pay taxes in Arlington, even if you attend TAFA or if you're homeschooling, you still have access to AISD facilities.
Mm.
You still have access to those programs. So we've had students who we tutored who parents opted to do homeschooling, but because they were identified and tested in AISD, they could still go to the campus where they lived and they could receive special education services. So that is it could possibly be the best of both worlds. And that's true for almost every one of the learning differences and disabilities.
Hmm.
So, but public school
I didn't
is
either.
totally equipped. Yeah. If a parent has a student and they do have special needs, even if they're homeschooling or if they do a co-op or sometimes even a charter school, we have educational advocacy at Excel Learning.
Yeah.
We can go into ARDS, we can go into special education teacher meetings, and we know what the student services need to be, and we can help parents get those services for their children.
Okay.
So and just like you all didn't know, and you have a kiddo in school, you have kids in school,
Mhm.
it's not common knowledge.
Right.
But when you find an entity, an educational service, and they are knowledgeable about that, it is so valuable.
Yeah.
Because, man, it
Hmm.
just helps your kiddo in the long run.
I understand that.
Are there differences, generally speaking? And I know that general, whenever you use the word general, and that's like a gunshot into, it's hard to answer that question. Super broad. But what about the teachers? Are there differences in teachers in regards to public, private, homeschool?
Man, a teacher's heart is the size of Fort Worth.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
is. And your husband is a teacher.
Mhm.
Your wife works in a public school. Julie, your wife, was an elementary assistant principal. I know she was in the classroom. I would venture to say that a teacher brings their best every single day.
Yeah.
I've worked with very few people who were there in my 28 years in public ed. I've worked with very few people who were there for the paycheck.
Mhm.
Now, I'm going to tell you there are those, but they are few and far between, and because of the demands of the job, they don't stay very long.
Yeah.
I don't know that there is a tremendous difference. Yeah. Everyone that we have, I know working with TAFA, you don't have to have a teaching degree and certificate. Most of these people, though, they have their bachelor's degree. A lot of them have their master's. There's a few of them that even are working towards a doctorate.
Mm.
So they're highly educated. They value education. And they are there to glorify the Lord, to bring Jesus into the classroom, and to teach those kids, take them from where they are and bring them to where they should be.
Hmm.
So,
That's good.
yeah.
So the things that I've heard you say, and if families are walking through this decision, on what path to go with your child's education, I've heard you say, "What's your purpose?" Right? You have to define your purpose. What's your schedule like? That's also what I've heard you say. Do you have more of an open schedule or a flexible schedule to where you can be involved physically? Can you work from home? Can you all those things? What are the challenges academically that your kid may have? Are there any other things that when you're talking to parents that you would say these are some things to think about?
Financial resources.
Financial resources is huge.
We've got
Yeah.
3 private schools within a 6-mile radius of where we're sitting right here. One of them, it's $15,000 a year at the high school level. The other one is $20,000 a year at the high school level. The other one is $31,000 a year at the high school level.
Yeah.
That's the tuition
Yeah.
costs for 9 months of education. So I always ask parents, can you afford it? What can you afford?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we see a lot of parents that are, for whatever reason, heading out of the public schools and determining between homeschooling and private.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times it does look at the finances.
Yeah. Sure.
Is that affordable thing? If not, what it is like. And at TAF, that's where we've come along. I just added up the other day. Our student on average spends about $1,000 for a year of classes. So to
Yeah.
be able
Wow.
to figure out a way
Wow.
to provide that. So it's different. So homeschooling actually is cheaper still than the private school, even though
Yeah.
you've got to buy
Yeah.
all of your own curriculum. But then it's the time commitment that you're making to be able to do it. And the time commitment's crazy. I think it's kind of a little bit different topic, but we deal with my mother all the time, who's like, "Hey, Colin, hey, I want to come over. Or, we're going to do this. Can you come over?" And whatever it is. And we're like, "We're busy." And I think that she's figured it out over the years, but in the beginning it was like, "Well, you're homeschooled. What do you mean you're busy?
Yeah.
You don't have anything to do."
Right.
And we're like, "Well, no, this week we've got home at 10 o'clock last night, and we'll be home probably 10 o'clock tonight." And we
Yeah.
started at 8 in the morning. And so it's a different schedule every day, but it can be a very busy schedule
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the same time.
Yeah.
So
But the cool thing is you can invite your family into that
Right.
space.
Yeah.
They can come alongside and they can help with the food, for the performances and the practices, and they can help get kids dressed and switching costumes and all of that. So I love the fact that moms and dads and grandparents and aunts and uncles, they are all welcome to be part of that process. So that's good.
Eric, do you meet with each family who desires to be a part of TAFA?
we don't individually, and part of that's just there's so many families
Sure.
each year that are new. We probably, I think last year had around 100 new families
Wow.
That's
starting to come into the
significant.
program.
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, you have
Wow.
a lot of that are graduating out and
Yeah.
things, but
Yeah.
that's a lot of new ones that come in. We do an orientation, a general one.
Okay.
With them, and then I get to do small conversations with most of the families because a lot of them
Yeah.
have questions, or they're coming up throughout the year, or they'll call me during the summer, and so we get to have
Yeah.
those. We don't do a formal interview, so to speak.
Okay.
And we're a little different than some private schools as well when it comes to a religious standpoint. Is we are heavily focused in what our teachers, believe that it's Christ-centered and everything. But when it comes to the students, that is much more relaxed because our goal, as we've talked to the board, is like we want to be able to share Christ
Right.
in what we're doing.
Right.
So we're
That's not a
okay with all of
prerequisite
them.
coming in.
It's not a
Yeah.
prerequisite coming in, whether it's
Right.
the family or whatever, but we do let family knows you will see Jesus when you're here on campus. And if that's going to offend you and you're not going to do it, then this may not be the place for you, but your kids are going to see it
Right.
continuously.
To go back to the question you asked, they all have access to Eric. He consistently and continuously walks the hallways, checks on every classroom. And I've seen parents often stop you in the hallway and when you talked about those little conversations. So he's not just holed up,
Right.
in his office
Right.
with the door shut.
Yeah.
People have access.
Sure.
And that's
Sure.
great.
Yeah.
This has been good.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Is there
Yeah.
anything that we haven't talked about that you would say, if you're thinking about, a choice for education, we have to say this. We can't leave without saying this.
I would say pray first. Definitely pray first and then
Yeah.
explore the options. Go and visit these places. Come into TAFA and take a look around. Go over to some of those private schools. Talk to some of the parents and get someone to help and mentor you. If wherever you're wanting to go, public, private, co-op, home, get someone to walk with you and mentor you. Yeah, because it's not as formidable as people might think, and it's doable because a huge percentage of the population is doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know that percentage? Do you know that percentage?
Well, I know that 10% of the educational population since COVID have been exploring and investing in other educational opportunities. Yeah.
It's a big number.
Yeah.
It is a big number.
Yeah.
And that's why when you look at the news, once a week they're saying, well, this school's getting ready to close. This school's merging with this one. Because parents really are becoming more invested in their students' education.
Right.
And that's a great thing.
Yeah.
That's a great thing for public school. That's a great thing for kids. And it's a great thing for all these other entities around here.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I mean, just because I know the homeschool world more than anything, but I had a teacher who said for 20 years, she's like, homeschooling, because it's changed so drastically, she always refers to it as parent-directed education more than homeschool.
Right.
So
Right.
we've got some parents that are homeschooled, and every class and every course their kid takes is completely with somebody different.
Yeah.
Whether it's at a different co-op type of program that focuses on something, or it's coming to TAFA and taking some of the arts-related classes. So it's figuring out what works best for your kid in the different ones. And some of the co-ops that are out there, again, we're a little different than a co-op because we handle a lot more. Co-ops are going to be more focused on all the parents are really involved in generally teaching an aspect of the classes and things. And some of those are good because you can get, maybe an engineer from Lockheed that's teaching your kid chemistry and things, and those are fantastic.
Yeah.
We had a chemistry teacher here one time. She was at Lockheed. She was on when the space shuttle had the foam issue that fell off that burned up in re-entry. She was part of that project to figure out what the solution of that was. So now she's teaching the kids as well. So you get some different elements of teachers. And so it's really kind of shopping it around, figuring out what is my kid really interested in? Where do I see them going? Everybody goes back to the scripture, train up a child in the way he should go. And there's a couple different interpretations on it of like, oh, well, make sure they're good and they'll be good when they go off in life. And I don't see it that way. It's more of like, hey, we're directing their path, helping. Where's God directing them? And so as a parent, that's a huge responsibility, praying about that. Where is it? And then I'm going to kind of figure out what's the best method to get them there where they need to be going.
Yeah.
So.
That's good.
Yeah, I want to, even my kids, we have 5, and my daughter did. I mean, it was essentially homeschooling when we realized that ballet was the direction, like you said, that she wanted to go. And I don't know that I was ever open to any kind of school other than public school before that, just because it's how I was raised. It's all I knew. But looking back on it now, it was absolutely the right decision for her. It would not have been the right decision for one of my boys, but it was for her and what she needed. So I think the one size fits all is becoming obsolete.
Yeah.
So I appreciate what it is that you guys do.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And they're great at their jobs, by the way.
Yes, they are.
So if you
Yes,
are
they are.
considering other options in education, education or a change in education, be sure to hit up Eric Williams at TAFA or Rynthia at Excel Learning. Thank you guys for jumping on.
Thanks.
I
Yep,
appreciate
enjoyed
it. Yep. All right. Well, again, thanks for joining us. And like always, go ahead and hit the rewind button. Watch it again because they're excellent in what they do. So we'll see you guys next week. Man, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed hearing us ramble about youth sports or other strangely interesting sports topics related to families, please go and like and subscribe to the show so that you can get regular updates when a new podcast is released. We'd also love to connect with you. Head on over to our socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We're under LC Sports and Recreation.
And if you're new to our podcast, go check out some of our previous episodes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. There's some good stuff on there. And pay attention because these come out pretty quickly, weekly, as a matter of fact. And you're going to learn a lot about what we have to say with regards to our league and how to win with the home team.